we're ready to get things started off. I don't want to talk too much because I want to let him kind of introduce himself. But guys, I'm going to turn the music off for this portion of the stream because I want to make sure that we can get full audio because it's going to be a great time, and I really want for this to be educational, also lighthearted. And at any time, please type me your questions. I will be sure to try to jot them down and save them for the end so that we can have questions. But here's the plan. We're going to do about 45 minutes to an hour of just talking, chit-chatting about League, getting his insights and all of that stuff. And then after that, we may play a game where he coaches me and tells me how terrible I am. And I'm all ready for it, and I'm excited for it. And so it's going to be a good time. So without further ado, if I could get you to unmute your mic there, SeeEL. Please, guys, everyone, welcome my guest today, SeeEL. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Nice to meet you. My name's SeeEL. How's your day, League Dad? Thank you for having me here, and thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Yeah. And so I was just telling them, as you heard, that, it was just an amazing way that we just kind of randomly connected. But, I'm a League player. I'm an older League player. I've been playing since the end of season 1 into season 2. And here I am still stuck, man, in high silver, low gold, and I've kind of been at that way. But this year is my year to rise above that and get into platinum. But it's one of these games that I've loved all the time, and so that's my history with it. I've tried all different roles all throughout the different changes. I'm kind of at the point now where I've realized that, especially with streaming, my role is support, and so I've kind of settled on that. I've dabbled it with pretty much every season, but this year this is what I'm going to do. So that's my history. What is your history with League of Legends? How did you get introduced? What's in a brief kind of snapshot, give me your journey through this game that we love, League of Legends.
So just as a player or as like a coach as well?
Both. Let's start with player and then into coaching and how you got to where you're at now.
Okay, guys. So I started early season 3 to play the game when the server came out in Oceania, because my friend recommended it to me while I was going to high school. And I started off as a very, very casual player. I was never a serious player. I was a for-fun player. I didn't care about the results at all. And I'd essentially just play. And I used to main Singed and got placed in Bronze 5 back in the day. Nice. Bronze 5 0 LP. And I was there for like an entire season. I didn't, I think I picked a Bronze 3 in the season 3. And then season 4, I was Silver 4. So essentially for the first 4 years of me playing League of Legends, it was very casual. I was never a big video games guy as I was growing up. I never got to play a lot of video games as I was growing up. So, this whole coaching thing was just out of the blue for me. I only really started to go on this journey when I went to university, and I was in the second year of my law/justice degree. And there was a great, vibrant community that was just starting to pop up all around Australia, and my university just happened to have a really good League program. Nice. So the people there recommended for me to try out being an analyst for their team. And so I was like, okay, I mean, I'm like silver. I don't know how much I can help, but I'll see what I can do. So within 3 months and 250 games, I went from, I believe, silver 4 to platinum 1. And in that time, I studied the game proactively. In 2017, I moved university to pursue a bachelor in commerce and business with a double major in finance and econ. And when I went to this new university, they were also starting a new program, and I was asked to join their program and lead their team. So from there on, I was a collegiate head coach from 2017 to 2018. And during that time, I peaked Diamond 3 100 LP. And that was just last year. And also, during that time, I had also decided to start streaming. That was when I randomly started streaming around the July-ish time with the primary goal of helping the community out, helping the League community out, help these guys get better at the game and help them understand the process in which to get better, not just impart the knowledge. And I ended up coaching approximately 350 people,
Oh wow.
350 individuals during my time streaming. I was also lucky enough to work with the co-founder of Riot Games. He was
Yeah, so
generous enough to give me his time.
yeah, let's pause real quickly because
Hmm.
I remember seeing that and I was like, whoa, what, how that's that doesn't just happen every day. Give us a little bit of backstory on how that happened, how you actually got to coach, and I actually got to pop in and watch that, and it was really really awesome to see you coaching like the guy who basically created the game, and that was really awesome. So let us know a little bit of backstory on that.
So it was just a random turn of events, and mostly it was luck and his generosity.
Yeah.
If I had to rank myself within the coach scene, I've still got a long way to go. I'm definitely not like a top tier coach.
Hmm.
I've got a long way to learn about the approach side of things and also about the game. But I had happened to make a Reddit post about the game and learning processes because I liked to read a lot of scholarly journals in my time as like a
Hmm.
hobby. And I like to read about things like leadership and ego dissociation and effectiveness of certain learning methods. And
Wow.
kind of merged those two together with League of Legends, and I'd made a post on how to improve.
Wow.
Mark Mel ended up reading that post off Reddit because it made front page, and he
Wow.
retweeted it. So I was like, you know what, Mark Merrill posted this. You don't get to succeed. You don't get to, have opportunities for yourself if you're
Yeah,
not brave. Fortune
that's
comes to
right.
the brave. So I just said whatever, and I tweeted at him, and I said, look, I can help you become a better player. And he said, okay,
I love it.
when?
Yeah.
When's the next session? And I was like, whoa, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah.
that's what happened.
That's awesome. And I don't really know what do you know what I guess his ranking is at the moment. I mean I know I'm sure people always want to know like, what was he currently at? Like what level was he currently at when you coached him?
Mark was old plat, so nowadays he'd be gold 3-ish.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, because so
gold
that's
with the
interesting you
rank
said
changes.
that. Yeah, and with rank
Hmm.
changes and everything like that. So, I don't want to take too much time here because we want to dive in. But what do
Hmm.
you think of as over the years, like as far as like I don't know if it's just me being worse or do you think the player base as a whole has gotten better and therefore makes it a little bit harder to climb? Because I've heard people say, I used to be diamond in, season 3 and now like they play and it's like everybody kind of has the mechanics of what diamond 3 was back then and some knowledge because it's been passed around so much. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's like that, or do you think that's more of an exaggeration and top tier players that were good back then could still be good today?
Just to elaborate, I actually kind of messed up. I spoke wrong. Not gold 3, it was platinum 3. So
Okay.
Mark's actually a lot better for an old
Okay.
man, yes, which
Okay.
means
Yeah.
that you have that potential as well. It's 38
Yes.
out of 39, I
Woo!
believe.
He's 30. I'm
Since I
35, so I can get higher.
Yeah, he's older. So I actually
Okay.
misspoke that. I believe he was
Nice.
platinum 3 or platinum 4 in
All
terms of
right.
skill level, and he was sitting in
Nice.
platinum 5. And to answer your question, yes, the game's definitely evolved a lot since I started, and you can see that through watching a lot of the old VODs, watching the movement in some of the older players. Something that might have been considered insane back in the day was something like a Lee Sin kick, just being able to ward hop and kick
Yes. Yeah. Back
someone
then.
behind into and
I
people
remember
the
that.
commentators, yeah, the Korean commentators used to
Oh
just be
my
like,
god.
"Whoa,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
god, so good,"
Oh
and
yeah.
just
I
go nuts.
remember that.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, absolutely. The
I
game's
mean,
evolved.
it's definitely
A-
evolved.
Yeah,
You know.
Diamond 3 in season 3. Honestly, I couldn't give you an exact number because I wasn't that good back in the day,
Mhm.
but I'd guess that it would be around the gold region now, almost. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I imagine too. Again, no excuses for me not climbing over the years, but like I wanted to talk to, and this is why I really wanted to get you on here because again, your approach to learning the game is awesome, and I'm kind of I'm an older guy, and I'm not relying here on my fast mechanics. I mean, I mean. I guess they're okay. Like, there's a lot of times where I'm like, man, if I was just a little quicker, that would have been much better. So for me, I'm really focusing a lot on the macro part of the game, the overall strategies of the game, the things that necessarily you don't necessarily need to have a lot of the mechanics, but using your knowledge of the game and what you've learned and applying it into climbing and in solo queue. And that's why I really thought it'd be great to get your thoughts and insights on this. So like I said, I am support main. Probably been that for the better half of like second half of last season after Akali got reworked, and then into this season. But I've always played Nami, Zyra. They've been kind of my mains for years and years. Leona and Soraka. But what is your main role? I think you mentioned you had played jungle. What's your main role now? And as far as like a person who like me who is not really looking to make the flashy mechanical plays and carry that way, but who wants to use game knowledge and strategy to try to carry themselves higher. What roles would you recommend and in order to kind of accomplish that?
To be completely honest, I can see where you're coming from with the
Mm-hmm.
mechanics,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think I completely agree with you when you
Mm,
say I can just climb with macro, and you
okay.
can climb with macro, but I don't agree with that approach at all. I think we should
Oh.
take a more balanced approach
Uh-huh.
where we work on both things because to me it's complacency. So to
Okay.
quote you, you said, success is what was that? It was a really good. It was a really good quote. It's like success is a personal standard, reaching for the highest that is in us,
Yep.
becoming
Right
all
here,
that
I'll post
all
it
that we can
again.
be, right?
Yep,
And
exactly.
by Zig Ziglar or something. So
Mm-hmm.
it really depends. You need to be able to point. You need to be able to point your mouse at something and click accurately.
Yeah, correctly.
That
Yeah.
that is the basis of the game. No matter how smart you are at the game, how
Mm.
smart you are at, for example, football or
Yeah,
soccer. League of Legends is also a hand-eye coordination game,
that's right.
and
Yeah.
luckily for you, you don't require, you don't need to be, Messi standard or Faker standard
Yeah. Yeah.
to get to platinum or diamond. So
Yeah. That's
by
true.
improving mechanics slightly and
Mm-hmm.
uh, applying macro knowledge, you can improve exponentially compared to just saying, "Oh, you know what?
Saying that.
I'm
Yeah.
35. Let's be complacent. Let's do this." I mean, it's definitely a skill that you can learn. It's
Mm.
definitely something that you can it can be taught
Well, I'm
compared
gonna
to
tell you that's encouraging for me, and I'm glad you said that actually because as I've gotten old, for what I feel is old, I'm 35, and like um, for me, it's always been one of those things. Like I've watched LS a lot, and he's like, if you're beginners, focus on those champs that don't have a lot of skill cap required. The point and click champs. And so I've kind of resorted myself to going in that direction because I feel like, well, I'm never going to be as quick or as fast as some of these younger players. But I like the fact that you still mentioned that no, that's still part of the game. At the end of the day, you still got to you got to click the right thing. You got to execute, and so that's nice to hear and encouraging to hear. And you said it can be learned and practiced on, which I like because that's something I want to get better at. Obviously, I really want to make an actual effort this year to climb. My goal is platinum, but I want to just take it one step at a time. So with that said, I guess I kind of skipped over my original question. What's your main role? What do you like to play? What champs do you
sorry,
like?
yeah, I was going to get to that. So
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm playing jungle and mid at the moment, but I can
Okay.
coach. I mean, I've played all roles to diamond. Essentially, I've
Mm-hmm.
played every role to diamond. I've never really pushed for anything higher, but I've
Uh-huh.
used a combination of secondary primary roles to play every single role to diamond. Diamond 5, the old Diamond 5. Definitely not the best by any means, but every single role has been hit with a low diamond rank. But my
Mm-hmm.
highest has definitely been playing jungle and
Okay.
mid. So those are my primary roles. And if I could elaborate on something that you said earlier,
Mm-hmm.
if that's okay, about
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
LS and what he said about learning the easier champs.
Mm-hmm.
I actually respect LS a lot as a coach, and there's a lot that I can learn from him. And but something a common misconception about when
Mm.
he says play Annie is it's not necessarily just to tell you to play a champion that's easy and a champion that doesn't require a lot of hand movement to play,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
rather when he says play Annie, He says it because the champion is very linear in its playstyle. So what I mean by that is
Hmm.
you're able to do a lot more while worrying about a lot less. You don't have to worry about, your shadows like as Zed.
Yeah, like
You
I
don't
said,
have to
yeah.
worry about star positioning like Aurelion Sol.
Mm,
Therefore, the approach in which you go for trades or all-ins or do something proactive and run the map, for example, engage for your team, is just a lot easier to execute on Annie. Therefore, you can focus a lot more on fundamental aspects of the game, like last hitting.
gotcha.
You can
Yep.
focus a lot more on, being able to flash or playing around people's cooldowns. So
Mm,
it's not necessarily just to improve your macro standard, right? Which is
yeah.
also a side effect of playing an easier champion because you're worrying less about the buttons you play and more about the
But
game.
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, but you're also improving your mechanics by playing an easier champion.
That's true.
So if you're a beginner anyway, and it helps you
Mhm.
understand when you can do certain things. So
Yeah,
yeah,
we have a friend who we played yesterday, and he's really new to League, and we were just playing normals, and he decided, who am I gonna play time? He went ahead and decided to play a Kali, and we're like, all right, and it was just a whirlwind for him. But yeah, I definitely understand that, and yeah, great for elaborating that. That definitely explains it more. All right, heading into season 9, let's get into some good stuff. Do you guys, how do you foresee the season 9 meta as it is now, and where do you think it's going to go into season 9? Your thoughts on the state of the game.
so I don't really I don't really like to speak rashly without making sure that what I say is correct.
Mm,
So because of the big 80 carry changes, I don't know
yeah,
where it's going to head towards. Especially with Riot having this tendency to just completely swap the game around. Like
yeah,
in
yeah.
in patch 8.10 in season 8, I believe they added the double scuttle meta, which completely changed the jungle, and they changed the jungle items and jungle experience. So this year, I don't know how much they're willing to take the changes with 80 carry, but I assume that we're going to have a lot more of a bot
Mm,
centric game, especially with the
yeah,
nerfs to the jungle, and we're going to see the solo lanes being far more important than, for example, season 6 or season 7, where jungle was the primary. Jungle and 80 carry was primarily the carry role. Now jungle's been nerfed to a state where it's still very
yeah.
good. You can still play it in solo queue and climb with it, but it's not going to be as far ahead as the solo lanes, and it's not going to have the possibility. It's not going to have the potential to
Hmm.
just be 2 levels up on everybody and one shot the 80 carry as easily as it used to be. So I
Exactly.
expect a more bot orientated matchup, which is really good for support.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And I was listening to the dive I think the last episode, and yeah, and Medios was on it. So of course he was complaining about the jungle nerves, and he was just saying, I think similar, echoing what you said. And I guess one thing he had mentioned that, healing supports and all of that stuff are going to be pretty important again, I guess, to, protect these crit, ADCs doing tons of damage with, junglers not being able to just jump in there and one or two shot them. So I agree. I think it's going to be interesting to see what's happened. I know all my ADC friends are excited about the crit changes, but really when they try to balance and all these things, at some point there's always going to be something that is a little bit stronger, and that's just basically how the meta develops, and it's always balancing. And so I think you're right. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And I think they've made some good strides with like turret plating and the bounty. I know it's not perfect, but for at least me, just from playing it and not knowing all the numbers and statistics behind it, just playing it, it actually feels better to me. I feel like even when we're behind, unless there's somebody hard inting, or somebody's just like all the lanes are just really super behind, I always feel like it's not that bad. Like like if we're still hanging around, especially in my elo, like I feel like it's not gonna be that bad. So I kind of like where it's at right now, but I guess we'll have to see. So one of the big things I kind of wanted to talk about is because I like to, when I'm playing support, I like to kind of be the shot caller for my team. Whether or not they listen is another story, but I like to I watch the game a lot. I love looking at games. I play basketball for a lot, but I really enjoy looking at the plays and the rotations and how things operate like that. So I enjoy that aspect of the game. Is there anything that macro wise, any tips that you can give me. So for example, one idea is that after you get bot tower, if you're ahead in lane, I've seen this a lot. Is it always proper for the bot lane to rotate top and your top laner to go bottom? If so, then why? If not, then why? So that's a question for you, and then any other macro tips you want to throw out there.
Sure. So after killing the bot tower, rotating top is a very common occurrence, and people often see that as a pattern of behavior through of pros. So then they assume that
They
that's
assume,
the
yeah.
most correct play to make. So a lot of the time it is, but there is no real ABC in League of Legends. It's always a case by case basis. The more you
Mhm.
understand that, the better it is. One of the most common things that I get asked is, what's the most optimal path? What's the most optimal rotation after killing a tower? And I always say that it's case by case. League is a dynamic game, so every lane is constantly shifting, moving, fighting,
Mhm.
rotating. So it's definitely a case by case basis. What I would rather recommend than just playing the game is, and then running top lane, is definitely understand and identify your win condition, which is something that we'll talk about later on,
Yeah,
more
yeah.
in depth, and also paying attention to the objectives around the map. So what objectives are we playing around? Something I like to tell my students, especially in the higher elo like Challenger, where we're not where a lot of these small macro decisions,
Mhm.
like even rotating to a wrong lane, can lose you the game. I always say that if you're not playing around the next objective, you're generally griefing. So
Yeah.
relative to your role, you need to know how to play around your objective correctly. So to
Yeah,
give you an
exactly.
example, if you're bot lane and you just destroyed bot tower before top lane has, and your top lane has teleport, but there's dragon up bot side, it
Mhm.
might be better for you to eat 2.5
To stay
waves, play
bot.
around your jungle, yeah,
Yep.
jungle priority, and stay bot. So push
Okay.
out that bot lane and then rotate mid and get mid priority before setting up a dragon vision. So it's
Yep.
definitely a case by case basis.
And see, and this is what and I love that you mentioned this because this is what I have a hard time, and I fall into this a lot, is this idea that League is a dynamic. It's such a dynamic game. Yes, there are certain patterns that are usually the correct move in most cases, but the game is always different, and I think that's what makes it so interesting, is that it's no two games are ever the same. And I think one of the problems I get myself into is going into autopilot mode. You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I'm gonna do this, do that, do this. It's kind of that very grind mode mentality. Whereas, instead of actually looking at what's happening in the game, what's the situation, what items are they building, what's their team comp, who's on our team, the potential that's gonna, get us this win, what do we need to play for? And I feel like, as a newer player, like, obviously, like, I've known some of this because I've been around the scene for so long, but as a new player, how do you learn all of this stuff? And I feel like that's why there's so much tilting and griefing going on, because people are like, you're supposed to do this, no, you're supposed to do this. And as a new player, talk to some of the newer players here, like, how does somebody jump into a game like this with so many intricacies and begin learning some of these nuances?
I mean, it really depends, as you said, on the skill level. If you're very new at the game, I mean, I would recommend just watching YouTube videos, going out there and
Nice.
seeing
Yeah.
the wide variety of resources that you get,
Yeah.
um, and not just playing the game, not just like spamming. I mean, playing the game is a
That's
really
me.
integral part of the game, but
Yeah.
just watching YouTube videos always helps. There's a lot of good content out there. I watch a lot of Korean and American content creators here and there,
Hmm.
just to get some tips and tricks that I might not know about a particular champion. So even coaches
Okay.
watch content. There's no reason for these new players not to.
Hmm.
And the other thing is, it's all down to mentality. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
It comes down to mentality always. It's complacency. That's one of the reasons people don't improve. It's the
It's
lack
good.
of will to improve that
Mhm.
people don't improve a lot of the time. Now, for example, if I see 2,000 games bronze and silver players,
Yeah.
and they can play, for example, Overwatch at a higher level, or Counter Strike Go at a higher level, because they
Uh-huh.
just rely on their raw aim. So in League of Legends, you can't just do that. It's a completely different game altogether. So it's the willingness to improve and how much time you're willing to put in to just sit
Mm.
there and say, okay, what do I need to
Me.
get better at after every game, and applying things that you watch online. Mhm.
Sorry, Mobile Mommy just said mute all, which is something that I do because I don't know. For me, I definitely get untilted, but I guess we'll talk about that a little more in depth. But mute all is a funny tip there. All right, so I want to kind of open it up to you because I know you said you wanted to talk about like win conditions, certain things like that, and I have certain questions and things like that too. But I wanted to just pick your brain and help me out in things that I can do to keep climbing, right? So I love. Do you know this guy? Because I have friends that are just like constantly, like they tell
Oh,
me I'm
guy above
washed.
me hates them.
Yeah, like they tell
Oh
me I'm
yeah,
washed up.
that guy's strong.
They tell me
He's
I'm
really
washed
bad.
up, and I'm like, how am I washed up when I've never been good? So like, I mean, jokes on you, buddy. But yeah. So before that though, I just want to ask you one question before I want to open it up to you, and you can kind of talk about whatever. Dragons, right? So I know they've been.
Mhm.
There's been a lot of changes. You got cloud, ocean, wind, mountain, infernal, and I hear people say, oh, it's just an ocean or it's just a cloud, especially in the beginning of the game. What are your thoughts? Is there theoretically a ranking of the different dragons? Because to me, and from what I hear from podcasts and things that I listen to, dragons are good, especially because I think they buffed Cloud Dragon, and I think Ocean Drake is pretty good now. But I want to hear
Mhm.
your thoughts on this. On is it worth prioritizing at all? Get like no matter what spawns, it's gonna give your team a buff. So should teams again and I understand everything's dynamic, but should teams always try to make an effort at least if it's in the cards to prioritize dragon no matter what it is?
I mean, of course, it really depends on a case by case basis. Once again, there's no ABC answer. It really depends on the situation and what's going on. For example, if Dragon's up, but then there are four people top. If the enemy has four people topside and Baron is up, then it doesn't really make
Yeah,
sense to just
doesn't
run
make
and
sense.
do Dragon. So
Yeah.
it is a case by case basis. But yeah,
Hmm.
dragons are definitely worth going for, especially earlier on in the game, where if you're able to just walk in and get it for free with minimal loss ratio. It's all about opportunity cost, right? The amount that you gain relative to the amount that you lose by doing a certain action. So, I mean, I definitely recommend starting off by playing around these dragons and then understanding their value through experience, just playing games out. When it's better to go for this dragon, or when it's better to, for example, get 3 or 4 tower plating. So it's definitely a case by case basis.
Yeah.
And to elaborate on the value of dragons that you asked about earlier,
Hmm.
it's also case by case basis. It
Okay.
depends on what kind of um, what kind of team composition you have. For example, air dragons could be more valuable.
Yeah.
Or if you have a strong split pusher and you're playing, ahead, definitely air dragons are also good there.
Yeah,
And also
definitely.
depends on what time that you're taking these dragons. So pre 14 minutes pre tower plating, Ocean Dragon essentially gets your tempo on every single lane. So the first Ocean Dragon that you get previous to 14 minutes is the most valuable objective in the game. I call that a 1,000 gold dragon, and it essentially gives a tempo, a kind of an up tempo beat to every single one of your lanes because you get sustain on all your lanes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I had to rank it pre 14, it would be ocean, infernal slash air, and then mountain. And then as the game progresses, air, ocean becomes the least important, and it kind of flips around. So it becomes like a air, infernal, earth, and ocean, because that sustain is no longer relevant. Fights are done in a more bursty way. You don't take too many extended trades anymore.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely it becomes something along the lines of air, infernal, earth, and ocean.
Yep.
Something about Air Dragon that people don't understand is back in the day when we had rune pages and you had to buy runes, you probably remember.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
People used to buy movement speed
That's right.
runes,
Movement speed. Yeah. Uh huh.
and it used to be really valuable because essentially, if you have plus alpha movement speed, which means you're faster than the other guy,
Yeah.
y- like it's better than armor. Like if you get hit by an ability
Yeah.
and you have armor, you take less damage. But if you dodge the ability altogether, you take no damage.
Yeah.
And every single second you move around the map, that movement speed plays into effect. So, fights
Yeah.
are won and lost decided on what jungler gets there through the hair, like through a hair follicle second, like
Yeah.
like a 0.1 second difference. Like who presses R
Yeah.
first, who
Yeah.
engages first, who presses who engages is like, it really is
Exactly.
dependent on a case by case basis. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, Air Dragon is really really valuable later on
Yeah.
in the game,
Yeah, and it
and
seems
Ocean
that
to start.
from what I've been hearing, yeah, exactly. Okay, let's. I'm gonna open it up to you now. Like as a support, I'm a support player, right? That my mains are lately. I've been playing Raka a lot just because I feel like she's super strong. Raka, Nami, Zyra, and Leona are like my mains, and I'm a support main. So talk to me as a coach. What would you be? And I'm in silver 1 right now. I'm pretty sure I'll get to
Mhm.
gold, but my main goal is to get to plat. What do I need to be doing and focusing on? Coach me. How would you get this 35-year old kind of veteran player who's been playing a while in support? What would you tell me to do and how I can get better?
Um, so the biggest thing is just uh how do I say this? Like complacency is the biggest enemy. So
Okay.
autopiloting is the biggest enemy. And I come from like a more of a professional competitive background. So I coach a
Mm-hmm.
lot of pro players, aspiring pro players,
Mm-hmm.
and autopilot is possibly the worst thing for them because the higher rank you are, the harder it is to improve. So if you're like
It's
500 LP
true.
challenger,
Yeah.
you're already at your peak. So it's just much harder to improve in general,
Mm.
and therefore you can't be autopiloting in these games. Every single game, every single second, every click, every movement, every CS, every rotation matters a lot, and it affects the game. And having that kind of mentality, I've realized with the lower ranked players does help them a lot. It changes their perspective. A
Mm.
lot of the time, one of the reasons why people are gold and silver is because they just don't put the time in to improve. They don't sit there and say, okay, what do I need to do? And as for you, what you need to do,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's once again a case by case basis. I like to I like to keep my thoughts fluid as I play the game. I like to take my
Mm.
approach to the game as fluid. When I do pick bands, it's the same thing. When I coach people, it's the same thing. Some people are just more receptive to certain aspects of the game. So I'll
Mm.
have to see the way you play. But if you're
Okay.
silver one, to be completely honest, you're
Yeah.
probably lacking in every aspect. So whatever we do
Uh-huh.
today, it should help you improve.
But that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking. Everyone, all my friends tell me that anyway. So I'm hearing nothing new here. Like, and for me personally, like I recognize, like, I'm not one of those players that's like, I should definitely be, at this level. Like, I understand that I am where I am because I have not gotten better, and for me, I feel like, again, watching a lot of games and watching a lot of YouTube content, and watching a lot of, pro gameplay and streamer, like professional players that stream. And I watch these players and I feel like I have an understanding of the game. For me, sometimes it's hard to pinpoint what I need to actually improve on. And so that's what I have you here for when we get into some gameplay. So before we do that, though, we'll definitely get into a game. I just got a couple of questions that I know some people were wanting to ask you and get your thoughts on this. First one is, I guess, in this specific where we're at right now, what do you consider good supports? People want to know what. Yeah, everyone wants to know, like, what are the good meta supports right now? Do you think tank supports as opposed to mage supports, as opposed to healer, enchanter supports? Give me your thoughts. And I know you don't like doing this. From what I can gather, you're very much like it's a case by case scenario. But let's try to throw some blanket statements out here. What would you
Sure.
say? Uh huh.
I mean, there are definitely champions that are just better overall and fits the meta better. So at the
Mm-hmm.
moment, I'd say something like a Thresh, Leona,
Mm-hmm.
Soraka, um, Morgana, Fiddlesticks, Pike, Alistar. The support meta is actually quite balanced right now. So there's a wide range of supports that you can play. And certain champions are better against certain team compositions. So maybe having two or three of them to suit for each team composition can really um, affect your win rate, overall win rate. So
Okay.
definitely, I mean, a lot of these supports are good, but yeah, I'd say something along the lines of Thresh, Leona that counter a lot of the healing supports like Soraka, Sona,
Mm-hmm.
and Nami, and then you have Pike as well in that engage category. Anti-engage, you have champions like Fiddlesticks, and then once again Morgana is good as well. It's a great neutralizer.
Okay, cool. All right, another question. If my jungle is getting counter jungled and I have no lane priority and the wave is stacked at my tower, should I help my jungle or farm the wave? That's a question from one of our
Could you
viewers
could
here.
you could you restate that
Sure.
question, please?
Okay, so if my jungle is getting counter jungled and I have no
Okay.
lane priority and the wave is stacked at my tower, should I help my jungle or farm the wave?
Really depends on the case. Once again, I'm sorry. These questions can be these
And I
questions
think,
aren't really like a 1+1. You know.
and the thing is because I think and like you said, this I think is a question that people will have because more often than not, what'll happen is that your jungle is getting, there's 2 or 3 man because you have no lane priority, and then the jungle flames you because you're at your tower farming. Right. And I
No, it
think
really depends on the
that's
situation.
really where the frustration comes out because nobody knows who's in the right here. Like, should
So
that laner get the XP or should they have tried to help and maybe save that jungler?
so what I would do is
Yeah.
is it a situation where your jungler is getting invaded and your jungler is
Yes.
getting smacked?
Yes.
Okay, well, okay. So for example, if it's a champion like Ivan,
Mm-hmm.
okay, when you're invading on Ivan and you
Mm-hmm.
get hit by anything, it interrupts your passive. And
Mm-hmm.
when you get interrupted, so even if it's like a Giant auto attack, it stops the champion from taking your enemy, your allied buffs or your
Mm-hmm.
allied camps, right? So if it's like an
Yeah.
Ivan, letting your ADC farm and just rotate on your own because Ivan doesn't have kill pressure is a great way to get your jungler ahead,
Mm-hmm.
especially if your jungler is coming back from counter jungling Ivan's camps, right?
Yep.
But if it's a situation where it's a very tight fight
Mm-hmm.
and it's you don't know who's going to win the 1v1,
Yeah.
and you're sure that by you being there your jungler's going to win that fight, then obviously you moving is the correct call. So once again, it's case by case, and you really have to just sit down and say, okay, let's draw a profit loss chart. What are the benefits of
Yeah.
me rotating here and what are the losses? Generally speaking, the AD carry moving or the laners moving is bad. Generally speaking, the jungle looking for a fight when you have no priority or
Yeah.
you can't rotate is bad.
Oh, that's
But
frustrating. Yeah.
once Yeah, but once again, it just comes down to what champion are you playing? Are you playing a champion that can roam really quickly, like Bard? Who
Yeah.
is the enemy jungler and who is your jungler?
Yeah.
And does you being there make a big difference? Is their support moving, right? So if your support's moving, if the enemy support is moving, definitely moving can be the correct call. So
Okay.
once again, it's a case by
Case.
case basis. I apologize. It's the fact that I'm not giving you a direct answer, but that's just
I
how it
think
is.
and I think I mean, yeah, people might get frustrated, but at the same time, I think also what you're reiterating here is that the league is a dynamic game. Daggone it! Like
Yep.
there is no direct answer, and I could see that, and I think like these questions arise from because we've seen scenarios like this pretty commonly, and I think
Yep.
still even in those cases, like for example, like you're stuck at tower, there's a huge wave, your jungler's already behind, and let's say there's no lane priority mid or bot, your bot, and their jungler and their mid is now invading your jungle because neither of you have priority. In that case, it's most likely that jungler is going to die, your jungler, and so maybe you get the XP at that moment and try to get gold and try to at least salvage what you can. And in other cases, it might not be that way. So I think that as frustrating as it can be, I think the big takeaway here for anybody watching and is that you really do have to analyze every decision that you're about to make, and it's hard to do sometimes on the moment in the game
Of
when it's
course.
happening.
Of course.
And I think that's one thing that I'm taking away as we're talking more and more is that I myself was like, maybe he'll give me an answer that I can put in my back pocket to know. But what I'm actually taking away from this is that when these situations arise now, instead of looking at it black and white, I'm going to take a more analytical approach and figure out what's best for the overall team, and can I win this? If not, make the right decision, or what you think is the right decision. So I actually take away from that, and as frustrating as it is, I think that's actually helpful. So appreciate that. Let me see if there was any last things before we get into a game. Sure, support doing this game. Okay, so last one is, and I think actually I think somebody had just posted this not too long ago. and you could speak in generality here, but in different elos, let's just move up the ranks. Let's talk about, we do have some people that are in kind of bronze, iron, that watch the stream. There's people in silver, people in gold, even people in plat, and even some low diamonds. Could you talk about, if you're in a certain elo, could we just start with, like, let's say bronze, just one or two things you should maybe focus on, generally speaking, to move on to the next rank, or that'll help you get onto the next, tier. So if you're in bronze, what's the biggest thing that you could probably focus on to at least get you to silver? And then silver, what's the one or two things that you can maybe add on to that to kind of help you get into gold, et cetera, et cetera. And again, speaking just in generality here.
Sure. So something I like to do is I like to use metaphors,
Okay.
and use examples from other sports, because essentially getting better at a task as complicated as League of Legends is very similar to getting better at something like soccer, for example. So let's break down the game. When you're trying to be a soccer player, or you're trying to get better at basketball or soccer, or football in America, I believe. Oh, do they call it soccer in America or football in America?
It's soccer in America, yeah.
Soccer, yeah. So say you're trying to get better at soccer, or let's just use basketball because you're a basketball fan. So say you're
Yeah, there you go.
trying to get better at basketball, and you've never played before. The first thing you'd work on is learning how to shoot the ball correctly, making sure that you're fit. So you'd be running every day, and knowing how to dribble, right? And those are what you call fundamentals. You need those things no matter what you do and how you play the game, where you're postured, what kind of team you're playing with, what position you're playing. That's irrelevant. You still have to know how to dribble.
Right.
You have to know how to run correctly. You have to know how to shoot the ball correctly. If not, you're an incomplete player. So when you're a bronze player, when you're a silver player, it'd be the same thing. You'd always want to focus on the fundamentals no matter what rank you are, but you'd want to focus it more if you're unfit as you are. So what I mean by that is, if you're a pro NBA player, you'd start working on other aspects of the game. You'd start working on game knowledge and macro movements, and how to position yourself in the court to succeed. But because you're already fit. But if you're just starting out and you're unfit, and you can't even stretch the court from one end to the other without without falling over or something, then that's probably what you're going to work on. So as a bronze player, work on your fundamentals. Work on last hitting, work on clicking the right buttons. Know your champion. So learn your champion, play one champion, minimize your champion pool, and definitely learning how to click correctly. Clicking minions. You see 4 CSPM. You see like you see people getting 4 CSPM in bronze. 3 CSPM in bronze.
Absolutely.
And that is just incredible.
Not just bronze, my friend. Not just I've seen some craziness even here. Okay, so and I always hear people say, like, okay, I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to get to plat. And people are like, plat is basically just like silver, but obviously it's not. So there's some things that they've obviously are doing better. And it's not just, I mean, obviously there's probably more games played, but there's stuff that they are doing that the silver player isn't doing consistently, at least, to get to that level. So I think that's a common misconception. But I love that metaphor, especially because I do love basketball. And you're right, learning those fundamentals, and then with the positional differences, just like League, you got different positions, different roles, moving on to those intricacies, but you have to have the fundamentals down. So I really like that.
Excuse me, sorry, I have to
absolutely.
Go to the bathroom.
Yeah.